about the damn thing not picking you up on my iPad here.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Hey, welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. Studio 10 Broadcasting, 10 o'clock talks. This is our America Disclosing Uncensored segment, Bigfoot, cryptids, and more that we talk about on the Dark Radio Network project. I have a very special guest with me today. I do want to do the best I can with the pronunciation, though, of your last name. I know I can pronounce the first one is Ernie. How do you say? I know it's like Davieau.
Davieau.
It's
Davieau.
just Davieau.
It's Davieau, but we pronounce it here, and we've been pronouncing it Davieau for 2 generations, anyways. It's Davieau since they came from Canada. They pronounce it Davieau.
And what is your culture? Are you like Indian or?
Yes. My dad was Native American. My mom was Portuguese. So, yeah, my dad learned to hunt off of his great uncle, and his great uncle Arthur was a guide in Canada, and he worked in a lumber camp, and he had to supply all the food and the deer meat, stuff like that. So he during the Depression, he learned to do a lot of hunting up there and passed it down to us. And he had to supply all the.
All right, I'm just double verifying the live segment part, but we're good. Okay.
Good.
All right. So, I was really impressed with your story, and so happy that you chose to come and hang out with me to talk about this to the rest of the world. I understand that this all for you took place around 36 years ago.
Yeah, roughly 36 years ago. Yeah, the early 80s. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you suggested that everybody gets a glass of whiskey and a cigar ready.
Absolutely.
I love how you said that. So everybody grab your cigar, get a glass of whiskey, throw it on some rocks.
Yeah.
It has nothing. It may have something to do with Bigfoot here. No, but it really does have something to do with. This is a fascinating story, and Ernie wants to get it out to the rest of the world so he can share and help place some data and facts with what he experienced. I want to ask you before we go further, though. This was actually during hunting season, so were you going in the fall at that point?
Actually, the state of Massachusetts. It was the last week of hunting season, which I believe it's in December, first week of December, in the Cobble Mountain region that I was hunting. I used to hunt New Hampshire, Vermont, places like that, Connecticut. But I was going solo, and it was just outside of my hometown. So I headed out that way. Yeah, I fell down there.
Yeah, it's okay. Technical problems have been happening all morning, and I want to apologize to everybody why we were late. We had some storms come through and some flashing of power and so forth. So we did have some technical difficulties on that side, but nevertheless, we're here now, and we're going to get this done again. So I hope you have your coffee, your cigarette, your cigar, and whiskey, whatever it is that you need. I also want to thank all the admins out there, respectfully, who always support us, because this is that focus point that I try to get into on the groups where we can share this out to people and possibly even help you to take a second step in the platform to share your other story with other hosts and admins to support cryptids and more. Also, hi to B. Moss and Bill Rigby, Dave Parker, some of the guys out there who stand behind the facts of the real truth. Mary Fabian. These are just great people, and I know they've been waiting to hear about this and check out your story. So why don't we go with that, like the same way you explained it to me, because every point of what had happened that particular day when you went out means a lot. So
Yeah,
why don't you explain from the beginning? Someone may know about this, but the world's about to learn about this. So
yeah,
why don't you give us the best you can of how you would like to explain
sure.
from the first steps to the last steps of this complete encounter?
Absolutely. Um, just a really quick backstory here is, a lot of people, they go out in the woods, and there are a lot of signs out there that you're just not aware of, and mainly because we think that we are the apex predator out there. We're not really looking up, and you really shouldn't be looking up into the trees. And when you're out there hiking, it's a good way to get lost. I myself been lost twice, and it's not pleasant. Okay, got myself out, but it's not pleasant. The signs that in my past, I have a brother that he used to hunt with me all the time. Every day we hunted or fished, and I've only seen him 2 times in the past 50 years or so. When we were just getting together this summer, and he shared with me back when he was a kid that on our property up pretty close to that area, that he had seen and described to me something in the backyard. And this is just recently he told me this, but that's just one of the particular things that we wash off when we're a kid. Later on in life, this area that I'm about to tell you about is very steep in legend in that area, but it never bothered me. I really didn't care. I've got a good background in hunting, fishing, martial arts. I was I had 2 guns on me that day, but I had many signs in that area that I overlooked. I just didn't think that it was possible. I seen the Patterson film, and I always wished that maybe I would come across one, but I figured that's never going to happen because that's just a freak of whatever that happened there. That there was just one running around in the United States. Hunting with my great Uncle Arthur and my father, I just have to say this, that one time we were out in an area he wanted to hunt in, and we split up. My father went with my great uncle, I went with my brother. We were told that we had walkie talkies on us. We were told if we seen anything strange or anything to go back to our meeting spot. Click the walkie talkie, go back, which we did because we came across some footprints in the snow, and looked like a barefoot man running around. And it's cold. There's snow. I'm like, who the hell would be doing this? It's got to be a crazy guy. We went back. We told them. It was basically my Uncle Arthur's area. They told us to stay put. They went and checked it out. They came back about a half an hour later. They said, we got to get out of here. We're not allowed to hunt here. Okay. We washed it off. We're kids. There must be a crazy guy running around.
Right.
So, we've gone in after poachers and things like that for the warden. We found lost people in other areas we've hunted in. So that's a little bit of my background. But this area, very steep in legend. It's well documented around that area. It's a Cobble Mountain Reservoir area. And I decided that the last couple days of hunting season in that state that I just needed a little bit of food for my freezer to supplement what I had. And I was going in by myself. I carried a backpack with me with a little bit of survival gear on there if I had to spend a night, about 25 feet of rope in case I got a deer, because if it was too big, I'm not dragging it out. I'm going to have to hang it so that the animals don't get at it. Like I said, it's there was signs in there. I just wasn't paying attention to it. Who would know? The area didn't scare me, even though I should have been at the time, but it didn't scare me. And I've heard accounts from other people that they've heard things right there in that area. So I got up bright and early that morning. I had topos of the area. I had studied the area, the game trails, the feeding areas, where they might be bedded down, and I decided to come in on the other side of the mountain. As I approached the summit, there was an outcropping of boulders up there, and So it's like almost like a Stonehenge, American Stonehenge. They're pretty big. But I figured that was the area that the deer might be bedded down in. So I was going to try to get as close as I possibly could, get a shot off. So I was going in first light. I'll say first light. And as I started getting closer to it, it was crispy that morning. A little bit of frost on the ground. Of course, there was a little bit of leaves. There's no snow. So there was spots where I could step on a rock, on this old fire road to be as quiet as I could be. And as I started getting closer, I would two-step a little bit, being quiet, but two-step. That'd be toe, heel. So you don't sound like a two-legged animal anymore. You sound like a four-legged animal to get you a little bit closer. And I jumped the deer. I heard them get up. It's something that you acquire. You can tell the difference between a squirrel and a rabbit and a deer jumping up. And they took off, but they were going along the ridge top. At that point, there was a little bit of a ridge there with some small saplings across the top of it, and about 100 or 200 yards in, there was a brook. So I was figuring that they were going to just keep following that ridge top, which paralleled the old fire road that I was on. And I knew that if I could get out in front of them, that I would get a shot at them. I knew that there was the low small saplings would end at a stone wall, and from there, if they came over the stone wall, it would be a set of old pines, and the fire road actually cut around, U-shaped back around on itself. So I was two-stepping, and I could hear them moving. But I wasn't concerned about why they were still paralleling the road, other than that they thought that I was another deer, so they were kind of relaxed. They seemed like they would stop a little bit. I would stop. I'd move on. Sound like they might have been browsing, which is
you're going but with a technique of foot hunting and observations, with this pattern of two-stepping and whatnot.
Yes.
Your main focus is on what you're hearing, and that's your instinctiveness of the hunt.
Yes, correct. Yes,
okay.
I'm actually, what you want to do is, it sounds strange to some people, but you want to become one with your prey. You want to really think like them. You want to feel like them. You want to try to convince them that you're okay and that you're another deer. And that's what I was doing. I was trying to maintain a low profile too, but still sneaking in there. And
how much time from that passed from your entrance into the area?
I'd have to say a good half hour. A good half hour to enable myself to get out in front of them, and I did. I was pretty pleased with myself, but you want to maintain that level of concentration on what's going on. You don't want to just start jumping up and down, going, "Yeah, I got out in front of them." I was more concerned about doing that and getting some meat for the table.
Right.
I knew the wind was blowing at me too. That's why I chose that side of the mountain, that side of the reservoir, to come in. There was apple orchards on the opposite side, so there's plenty of feed for them up there, and I had hunted that before. But as I got up there, I positioned myself almost on that I'm going to call it a switchback on itself, on that fire road, almost in a kneeling position, and just starting to draw up on the stone wall, because I knew I could hear them coming, and I knew they were going to come up over that stone wall, and if they jumped the stone wall, they would be moving, galloping, whatever, before they would calm down, and I would get a nice clean shot at one of them. Well, just off to my left at about 30 yards, I noticed a little bit of movement just on the outskirts of my peripheral on it. So it drew my attention because I knew that a lot of the bucks might not be with them. They might be separated a little bit or whatever. And I said, oh man, I got one laying down right over here, 30-yard shot. That's nothing. I had a 12 gauge semi-auto recoil barrel loaded with slugs, and I had a handgun on me. And I'm not bragging, but I know I can pie plate him at 100 yards with that gun. So I said, this is going to be an easy shot, but it's laying down. In the state of Massachusetts, you cannot take a deer laying down. So I'm still trying to watch that stone wall because I don't want them all coming over the stone wall and scaring this one off in an opposite direction where I'm not going to get a good shot. And it started getting up, and I said, yeah, man, I got myself a deer here. And it got up a little bit more, and I said, oh, gosh. I said, it's a bear. You know, I said, I don't have a permit for a bear. I don't want to shoot a bear. I want the deer. So I'm trying to watch it and the stone wall at the same time. And I'm worried about this thing spotting me, even though it looked like it had its head around the other side of the tree facing away from me. And I didn't want it to all of a sudden become aware of me, even though I was downwind, and bum rush me, because that would not have been, I would have had to shoot it. It started getting up a little bit more. I said, oh man, I said, I got another hunter in here. I said, it's a guy. I said, he must have been posted up on there. He hears what I'm hearing, because I can hear the deer in there. And it sounded like they were banging up a tree. A buck was in here banging up a tree or something. And it started getting up a little bit more. And I said, oh my God. I said, that's a pretty good size guy. I said, I better position myself so that I'm not out of his peripheral. I want to get a little bit more into his peripheral. So if the deer, when they come over that stone wall and if they try to go between us, he doesn't shoot me. He needs to know that I'm here.
Well, may I interrupt just for a quick second? How far would you say that this was in your sight? Like maybe 100 yards or
30.
That
30
close?
yards.
30 yards, 90 feet. So
yeah. Okay. I'm also a bow hunter, Michael, and you got it. I shot a primitive bow. I didn't have a compound or anything like that. I had to figure out yardage. I've done a lot of bow hunting. So I'm pretty confident that was about 30 yards. And I'll tell you why in a minute, because I even measured it off after all of this too. But it continued to get up, but its head was around the other side of the tree. And I said, oh my God. I said, that is a really, really big guy. I got my shotgun back on it. I'm like, this can't be a guy. And I heard all hell break loose on the other side of that stone wall. It was a knockdown drag out over there. And I'm saying to myself, geez. So I don't know what the hell's going on over there, but this ain't right, you know? A little nervous here. This thing was huge.
Nervous, right? You're not nervous right now. You're talking about in that moment.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think I was about as nervous then as I am right now, recounting this story.
You know what? Hey, but there's an importance as to all this, and for everybody out there. So
yeah,
we're just guys BSing here. But again, as we do it, a lot of people are going to observe and take this information in.
Yeah.
It's all good, brother. It's all good, man.
Thanks.
Everybody here's your friend. I guarantee it. And if they're not, they'll be gone like that.
It's okay.
But, yeah, definitely it's okay.
I mean, I got a little bit of a military background. I've got the martial arts behind me, a lot of martial arts behind me. I've been in a lot of fights in the tournament realm on it. It takes quite a lot for me to not be in control of my emotions. And that was getting a little emotional, Mike, and I was starting to put two and two together on because does not seem normal to me that this is one huge man. It's the biggest man I've ever seen. And so I checked my wind direction. I want to make sure I'm not flipping out here. I looked at my compass, my wristwatch. I know a plane went over me. It during all this ruckus, it stepped away from the tree and swung its right leg around the tree towards me, and then it swung its head around the tree. And it was at that point, right there, that I knew that this definitely was not another modern day man. And I say that because it was unmistakable what it was. And it looked right at me, and it was shocked. It was shocked that I was standing there. I got the shotgun up on it. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if this thing's going to come at me. I know I'm awake, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you know, the incidents like this change us all in that moment.
Forever.
And that's the moment where you I've always said, because of things that I've dealt with, you know, be careful what you wish for. And this wasn't why you were there. I mean, we're talking about meat on the table, longevity, life, and here you encounter something that you never anticipated to encounter, and it sees you, and you describe it in a way to where it was surprise. Can you explain the emotion of the element of the surprise that it showed to you?
Yeah. It looked at me like a double take on me. You know, like it couldn't believe that I was standing there, that I had gotten the drop on it. I mean, basically we were all, I'm going to give part of it away here. There was obviously more than one. And I really felt in my gut, my instincts were telling me that them deer were being attacked in there, and that it was set up on a pinch point, on an ambush point, and that its concentration was on the other one, or more than one, that was with it, and they were putting the old snafu on the deer on the other side of that stone wall, which was only about 50 yards away. Okay. I figured that when them deer came over the stone wall, if one of them got away, they didn't succeed, this one here was going to continue on the run like wolves would do or something. It would continue chasing it if one got injured and try to grab it. So it was startled that I was there, you know. And I can understand why, you know, because of the way I got into that area. Even though I was in the open, it had its head around the other side of that tree. But what it did next was it fully come out from behind that tree, because it was really intrigued with, was I real? You know, how the hell did I get there? I mean, people don't just sneak up on these things. You're not going to sneak up on them, you know, and I'll come out on the reason why I believe that. I shouldn't say believe, because there's a difference between believing, Mike, and knowing. And I know that you just don't sneak up on these things. And I'm convinced that these things, they can use the trees. They can use boulders, whatever they want. They don't need a spear or anything like that. But I'll get into that. You know, there's a lot of people out there that say, well, whoop noises. My take on that is, if you have never seen a parrot and you've never seen a dog, but you heard a barking noise, you don't know that it's the parrot or the dog until you've seen the dog make the barking noise, or you've seen the parrot make the bark noise. You don't know which one.
Correct.
Well, as it stepped away from the tree, and I'm not getting into the actual hand gestures it made towards me, because I don't want anybody to, I use this loosely, plagiarize this account, because there's a lot of people out there that want to hoax people. And when you do that, you hurt people. And that's why I'm standing up and I'm on your show to let people know you're really hurting people, that it's necessary for these people to come forward to get this off their chest and to bring other people forward with information. And this is 36 years ago this happened, that I kept this buried. And to hear people hoax people really hurts and makes me angry.
And I agree with that too. And I want to just interject for a moment. Like, I have some really great guests who come on who give great descriptions, and the element of that time that they are lucky enough to encounter this particular being. You hit on key elements that if people listen very close to people with voices who live near them, amongst them, encountered them. I've heard Dave Parker make mention of certain narratives that you've touched, but not, more than even David. I mean, I would say at least there's 25 really good, strong people out there with stories and accountability who really deep dive or have this a scenario where they're just in an area where encounters are able to happen for whatever reasons they are, but whether it be territorial or more. So you're right. I agree with you. Everybody wants the next best set of proof, the next best set of pictures, the next best set of everything. And here it is standing right in front of you there. So I'm going to allow you to continue, but I want you to know that I back and support exactly how you're theorizing this and the way some of the facts and some of the ignorance in this field are when people come into it. And they shouldn't be like that, but they are, and we're going to have to suffer for through more moments of that until more maybe possibly comes out in the future. Again, not to take you off narrative, because your story is incredible. So here you are, this being, and I know you have more description of the encounter to explain. He shows himself. Let's pick it up from there.
He shows himself. And like I said, he was taken aback. He was surprised. He was flabbergasted, for no better word for it, that I was there, wondering how I got there. You know, I believe in this today that they know when you're there. You know, they know when you're out in the woods and everything. They become familiar with you. That's their home. But he stepped away from the tree, and then he made 2 hand gestures to me. It's taken me a long time to really digest this, but he knew how to approach me. I had my shotgun on him. He knew for me to let my guard down. I'm a trained fighter. People have asked me, was it a male and a female? There's a lot of reasons why you don't look down there. Okay. First of all, if you're a trained fighter, you're looking pretty much between the chest and the neck. So I can see head movement. I know what you're going to do. I can see your shoulders move. I can see your arms. There's not much that you can do that I'm not going to be able to interpret as which way you're going to go. So that's where I'm focused on, but I'm trying to take in all of this. Well, he knew how to approach me. He made a hand gesture towards me with both hands, and started walking towards me. And I got my shotgun on him. But he's gaining my trust. I can't tell anybody why. It's just a feeling that I had. And today it kind of scares me that it knew how to do that, only because you have cases of like missing 411. And knowing that people aren't abducted by people they really so much as they don't know. Even if they don't know them, that person knew how to approach them. They've been watching them or whatever. This knew how to approach me, and it started walking at me. And as it gained my trust, I lowered my shotgun, and it made another hand gesture towards me. And it's taken me quite a long time to find this information. And I'll just say it for people right now, that if you believe that they can't communicate, you're fooling yourself, because they leave little trinkets of joy in the woods for you, that's communication. The Native Americans, there's a documentary that was done in the 30s, I believe, and it's like 9 or 10 Indian chiefs sitting there during a big meeting. I can't give you all the details because I don't remember it that well. But let's face it, the Hopi didn't speak Navajo, the Navajos didn't speak Apache. How did they communicate? Sign language. They all sat there and they all communicated with sign language. I watched the whole show and they all understood each other. There might be some little nuances there. How did the voyeurs? My family were what they called the voyeurs in Canada for the Hudson Bay Company and one of the other fur traders. That's what this was doing as it walked towards me. I'm intrigued. I'm completely intrigued. I'm studying this thing. I'm looking at its face. I'm taking in the wrinkles on its face. Yeah. I've seen its eyes, blue. I've seen the color of its skin. It got that close to me. I've seen, and this is the part that people, they can try to think whatever they want. This thing had hands like a man. When you look at your palms and you've got that M shape on your palms, that's how close I was. That's what I seen on its hands. I seen its fingernails. I seen its forearms. I was studying it, and it was studying me. The hand gestures that it made were quite unique. It's taken me well over 30 years to try to figure out. I would love to hear other people. I want to hear those hand gestures because it may help people in the field if you come across one, what to do. I can't tell you exactly how long that it was in my presence because it was using hand gestures. Only the fact is I repeated, what else are you going to do? It looks like it's trying to communicate. I repeated the hand gestures. I had my shotgun down.
Can you give us an example of what it?
Yes, I will.
What occurred in that moment?
Yeah. It basically was telling me what I am assuming is it had no food. It was asking me if I had food. It pointed towards me, my chest. It pointed toward its own chest. The sign language that it used was, we are brothers, we are the same. That was disturbing in a way. It was kind of calming, but disturbing. It was very, very man-like. Huge, huge. When it was by that tree, I had enough sense to measure off on the tree, mark it with my eyes, looking for a marker on that tree that I could go over and check after this was all said and done. If I lived through it, which obviously I did.
You must have had a certain amount of easement after the initial sighting between each other, like him in surprise that you're there, you in surprise that you're encountering this mythical reality. Because it's both mythical, but it's also now you're in front. It's reality in your eyes.
It's real.
So you're but he's also being kind to you in a way where I would assume some time is occurring and passing as you're eyeing out the tree. He's giving you sign language, showing you palm, doing different things, and you're acknowledging this as definitely it's an intelligence without a doubt.
Beyond a shadow of a doubt. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, these things are smart. They are the apex in the woods. This thing is far more intelligent than what everybody gives it credit for. Okay. And you got to figure if there's more of them out there, let's say there's some in Nebraska and in Massachusetts, they may not speak the same language. Therefore, what are they going to use? Sign language, just like the Indians did and the trappers did when they came across other Indians, because they did travel around from group to group. The trappers did. They were the only ones that really did it.
Yeah, and I apologies for interrupting there, but I take
Right.
that as being such positive information because we know as trading routes and ships and other countries
Yeah.
and desirabilities for things, you step onto an island for the first time, you probably are not going to understand the first three words that comes out or
Right.
syllables that comes out of another person's
Right.
being's mouth. So
Right.
where do you go to? You're right. The analogy there
Right.
is like
Right.
there's no other way to look at it. I don't know you, you don't know me. We don't speak the same language, but I'm looking for a place to go eat. Speaking
Exactly.
of reality, so I say to you, point at me, and say like pointing at my stomach
Right.
and my mouth. You're going to understand I'm hungry. You
Right.
know.
Right.
So I get that, and it makes perfect sense. Especially, I would think when you have an encounter such as yours was, which
Yeah.
is unfounded. I mean, it's
Yep.
I'm going to see in your future a desirability for this story to go like pandemic wild. No
Yeah.
joke. But again, I don't want to interrupt it too much, but
It's all right. I
focus
enjoy it.
points, keeping people focused on some of the most maybe or some of the most important features of the story that you're expressing.
Yeah.
These are important beyond a shadow of a doubt, and these are
Yeah.
really great for the young researchers to
Hmm.
possibly also to absorb this information. And again, I
Yeah.
apologize for interrupting, but I agree with you totally. How does that happen? It must be because in ways they've experienced man before, as
Yeah.
we kind of know that they did, and there was a separation. We hear of lore and stories and different things that take
Yeah.
us on these paths that
Yeah.
teach us about certain events that have occurred. And here you are explaining how the truth of that is
Yeah.
real. It's really there. It's
It,
really there. But
it
again,
is.
you experienced something that I've only heard two people in 47 years come up and give an encounter about, but yours has much more detail and depth.
Yeah.
Uh, so again, I'm going to back off here. I just wanted to get out a couple points to that there, keep you comfortable, keep the
Sure.
audience comfortable. So you're seeing all these things. He steps out from the tree.
Yeah.
You actually see blue eyes. You actually see
Oh
the
yeah.
big M's on the palms.
Yeah.
You're actually perceiving an intelligence communicating with you through a type of a sign language, and you're
Yeah.
accepting all that. How does, as he's approaching you and you get this, can you tell everybody how close you think he was actually from you?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I'd say in the end, not the end, but we'll call it the middle. He was about 10 to 12 feet from me. And simply enormous. When I repeated back to him what he had done to me, one of the things was that he did, and I'll tell you, is he pointed to my left over my shoulder, and he pointed to my right over my shoulder, pretty much asking me where the hell did I come from? You know, so of course, everything that he did to me, except for the food bit, I repeated back to him. And it was at that point that he kind of put his head down and looked at me. And then he looked towards the area that the deer were coming through, that ruckus happened. And he faced a little bit towards that area. And he let out this whoop noise. And there you go. There's that infamous parrot dog thing right there. I don't know if anybody's ever seen one do it, but he did it. And if anybody wants to know, go to the zoo, get as close as you can to a lion that's roaring. It's like the base is turned way up. You can actually almost feel your shirt move. And later on in life, they have an amazing lung capacity. I know how they force this noise out, but he lets out this whoop. And then he looks back at me, and he looks back at That's my dog. He looks back at me and he looks back out towards that area, and he puts both his hands up to his mouth like you would go like that, and he lets out 3 whoops with a space of about a second and a half to 2 seconds in between each one. 3 whoops, and after he does that, he whistles. Now there you go again. People can say, well, I hear this whistle and stuff, and all along my life, I've heard those things in the woods and while we were hunting in the hunting party, and I was told that it was this or it was that, and that's not true. I do believe that the elders in the hunting party, they knew exactly what that was, and they kept us away from that area, but they never told us. Shame on them. But we got out of there. But anyway, it let out those 3 whoops, and then it lets out a whistle. It sounded just like a guy. That's one of the things that you do when you're hunting. You might whistle so that you know that you're still like 75 yards away from the other guy if you're going to do a bit of a drive or you're on track, you know?
Right.
And then it hand gestures. Like you would call somebody over, but it points back in the direction of where it came from. And I'm like, okay. I said, I'm thoroughly convinced right now. I'm glad I didn't shoot. I'm glad I didn't lose my cool and shoot it, because I wasn't going to be able to make it out of there. There's definitely more than one. My spidey senses were correct. And it takes one last look at me, bows its head, turns, and I say lumbers off. They don't have to run. They can lumber off. When you're that big, you can just lumber off. And he lumbered off about an additional, altogether probably about 55 yards from me, and stopped. And right before he got there, I could hear something break the tree line over near where the stone wall was, and I see another one. Now, this one that was in my presence had dark hair, not fur. It had hair. Its skin was dark brown.
Okay, that question just came up. So from what you could tell, the pigment of the skin is actually brown.
Yeah, dark brown. If you
dark brown with luscious black hair.
Yeah, it was black. It was black hair. But don't forget now that a lot of people that have not a lot of people have black hair. They have dark brown hair.
Right.
So it could have been a light, but that was dark hair. That was brown, dark brown hair for sure, because he was that close to me.
Okay.
So he stops out at that distance, and this other one breaks the tree line and is running right over to him. The other one was smaller, not a whole lot smaller. And I'll tell you how big he was in a minute here. But this one that broke the tree line, and I just heard somebody on a program the other night. He said, "Nah," he said, they couldn't catch a deer. Well, I got news for you. They can catch a deer. The Native Americans rite of passage for an Apache boy was to catch a rabbit. Go try to catch a chicken, never mind a rabbit. These things could catch a deer if they wanted to catch a deer. This thing was Olympic runner, fast sprint through the woods. It broke that tree line. It probably had to run 100 yards to get to the other one. And it was a lighter color shade, like a cinnamon grizzly kind of a look to it. Now, at that distance, you really can't make out the facial features all that well. At 35 yards, you can make out facial features, but you can't make them out that well. I don't know how I can express that to people. Our mind, when it starts filling in things for you, like your peripheral vision. Your peripheral vision is not real. It's your brain filling in things that do exist just out of your eyesight. That's your peripheral vision. That's right. Scientific. But this other one, it ran over to him, And this is where, again, if you listen to those Sierra sounds, that is them. Now, I speak a little Japanese. I know what Japanese sounds like. I know that the Native Americans have words in their language that are very influenced by Japanese and Hebrew even. And this was like a mixture. If you listen to those Sierra sounds, it was like a mumbling, I used to be able to do it really good what it was. And they're basically kind of almost facing me. And the big one's obviously talking to the other one. And I get the feeling it's trying to tell it the reason why it called it over. And I see the littler one look at him like, what? And the big one points directly at me, and the little one looks over at me. So there's the three things that I heard for sure right there, that they do make them sounds. And they do travel that sound does travel pretty far, because I don't think that I could hear two men talking in the woods low. And it's a very low sound. It's like almost like a bass sound to it, like a mumbling almost. And he points right at me. And the little one was like, had to stoop just a tiny bit to look at me, because there's some branches in the way. And it was shocked. And the big one points towards the little one, its chest, and signals it to go that way. And it points towards itself, signaling to which way it's going to go. And they split up. And it was at that point I'm saying to myself, oh, God. Because I was going to track them. I was going to follow them. I wanted to know, where are they going to go? Where do they live even? I want to know this. I thought this is the cat's meow right here, The only thing I regret is I didn't bring my phone that day. And back then, phones were pretty crappy anyways, but I didn't want it ringing or anything like that. And they took off. So I said, okay, I got enough brass up, knowing that what they're doing is they don't want me to follow. I have a 50-50 chance. Follow one and be flanked by the other, or follow the other one and be flanked by that one, or they're both intended on flanking me. So I said, I gotta check this out really quick and do what I have to do. And I went over to the tree to measure off on the tree. I was disappointed. I got to be truthful. I was disappointed. I really wanted this great story that this thing was going to be like 12 feet tall or whatever. Now, mind you, this thing was standing next to me, and I wasn't up to its shoulder. Really close to its shoulder, but I was looking at its shoulder when it did the whoop noises. And so I'm measuring it off on the tree, and I come up with 7 foot 8 inches tall. And I've heard that from people. And then I wanted to measure its gait when it lumbered off. It didn't go through anything that would really hold a track, but it did press down some of the foliage where it was going. So I was able to measure the gait at the time. I don't quite remember. It was way bigger. I even jumped to try to, duplicate to see if this is going to measure up with the marking on the tree. It was pretty much at that point. I said, I'm not going any further. I'm wasting time here. I don't want them to flank me. And I just wanted to get out of the area. So I decided to vacate the area, going 100% backwards over the side of the top of this mountain. It was pretty steep. I mean, I could have had a slip and fall. So I had my rope out to just sling it around a tree in some spots. And I felt safer that way. That way there, if it was going to come up on either side of me, it would have to come down that ridge side, that mountain part of the mountain. And I could position myself behind one of these big trees. They were old wood trees, and defend myself, and it wouldn't be able to throw a boulder at me because I'd be behind these big trees. And I kept lowering myself down all the way down back to my car. And I got in my car and drove home, and I was completely beside myself that this has happened to me. Like, wow, holy cow, who can I talk to? And at the same time, I was shaking all over. I think I shook for like 3 days straight. I just, I just couldn't stop. I was just, I was scared at that point, knowing that they could flank me, that there something could have happened, that I shouldn't have been so naive in a way, but it was what it was. But I just wanted to tell people that they do communicate these things. When you're gifting to them, it's a form of communication. If they're moving something, it's a pattern. Copy those patterns down. If they gift you something, I guess you would have something on you, like one of them little dream catcher things that supposedly they make or something, but they do communicate. They're extremely intelligent. The other thing was, I really didn't look at its feet. I didn't want to really take my eyes away from where my concentration really was to make sure it wasn't going to make a move on me. But it was, I don't think that it thought I was real from the beginning. Like, how did I get there? Where did you come from? Try to calm myself down here. I know it's hard for some people to recount their story because you're actually reliving it. And I've heard people say that there's not that many of them, that they're singular, they travel by themselves. Not true. It's not true. It's a family unit. They hunt in groups like that. And if they wanted to get you, they get you. Mike, people say they were chased out of the woods. Yeah, you're exactly right. You were chased out of the woods because if it wanted to catch you, it could have snapped you up and just thrown you out of the woods. They're just scaring you out. They don't want you there. They have a family unit, and they're mad, and I can understand that because through my studying this whole thing is at one point, the American chestnut, the feed, what do they feed on? People think that they're like a spirit animal or a ghost or whatever. Ghosts don't eat deer, nor do they eat the American chestnut, which is pretty much non-existent anymore. Nor do they go. I don't believe they go through a portal, Mike, because if it did, it would have gone through the portal. It would have never tried to get away from me like that. Okay, it would never have tried to get the deer like that. It could have just appeared and grabbed a deer. My personal feeling on the subject, but right. The noises that it makes, Mike, it's for sure they do that.
So you're giving everybody confirmation there. The whistling, the whoops.
Yeah.
The intelligences, the packing, the hunting. These are fragments of what have not actually been
verified.
Well, you hear about them, but some of the ways the stories come across, but here you are stating proof positive. So,
absolutely.
That takes a lot. Listen, I'm going to call it the way it is. That takes a lot of balls because there's a fear of judgment and on many levels of many different things. And to come forward as you have and describe the scenario of this encounter, it's probably the best encounter of America that one. And I'm not saying that others haven't had it. We just haven't had the information fall into our laps yet. But here you are confirming so many of the unknown elements that surround us, getting the portals at 411 missing. When you get into these elements, as we learn now, because 36 years ago, you don't base them upon it. And as you even said, it took many days and years for you to analyze through the encounter of and within your memory of the sign languages and the element of surprise that occurred between you both. So I can understand in a way it could take possibly years for someone to, go home and tell the wife that one, right? When you're still not even sure, proof positive, it takes time to put it together. And I think you have more than enough time. And I'm glad you used the platform here for us to get your story out. And you're creating a balance here, a balance of fact and truth, and people need to understand that, respect it, and be loyal to it when people can come forth with an encounter such as you. Impressive to me beyond all measures is the closeness that of the encounter, the eyes being blue. And again, I've heard that before. Many say, well, we don't know. And sometimes it's a color by mood. Sometimes it's all about how the focus of the light is. I don't know. I've never seen one's eyes. So I cannot tell you that I can say one way or the other. But I'm very happy that you are able to, and to confirm to us the fact. You didn't make one mention though. You did make mention in the green room when we talked the other day.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to compare this to another human being or primate or something, how would you do that? What would your analogy be? Because I mean, let's face it, I'm looking at you and I can say, hey, that's dude, he's Caucasian, he's got glasses, he's got my beard, quit copying me. You know, I'm just joking. The element of ease. Tell us what you think it looked like.
Well, very Native American, Neanderthal, African American, flat nose, dark skin. You know, it had the brow line. The eyes were a little bit sunken. High cheekbones, Native American. You know, and it looked like it got in a bad boxing contest, and had its nose flattened out a bit. But you know, the nostrils, you can understand that. Hey, they're for smelling. They're for sucking in oxygen. You know, the dark skin. I mean,
the nose was very big and prominent.
Flat, yeah,
very
it
flat.
was big. It was all in perspective to the size of the body. Too. That's what I try to tell people. In other words, its head wasn't the size of a softball, but its nose was the size of twice as big. Because I wasn't focused on that. I was focusing on all of its features. On was there anything abnormal about it? It was all in relation to the perspective of what I look like. You know, I don't think my nose is bigger than my face, and my ears are smaller than my head.
I gotta ask you something, and I want to ask you something, but I don't want to put this on as a weighting pressure on you.
No problem.
In this element and all this excitement, and as you stated, you know, you did some professional fighting and whatnot. You're military, and more. But somewhere in your mind, of everything going on, a certain amount of comfortability must have occurred between the contact of intelligence between you and it, because you were able to absorb a lot of information in the encounter. How long do you think that all took place in time?
10 minutes.
Wow.
10 minutes.
So impressive.
Yeah. 10 minutes. In my guesstimation, it could have been a little bit longer. It wasn't shorter, you know, because I don't think that it just decided that what it was going to do is just walk fast towards me. So you got to picture that it was still figuring me out. So it was going to kind of take its time walking towards me, but still be using these hand gestures to gain my trust.
Was there any specific hand gesture that it made to you that sticks out more than the rest?
Yes. When it pointed towards me, towards my chest.
Okay.
It pointed towards me first. And that is one sign. And then it pointed towards itself second. The meaning of that is if I were to relate that back to somebody who understood sign language, if I were to point to myself first and then point towards you, that means I'm greater than you.
Oh.
Now, not only that, but if I were to point my two fingers towards myself and then you, I am not only better than you, I am godlike. It didn't do that. It pointed to me first with one finger, and then it pointed towards itself with one. We are equal. We are brothers. That was kind of disturbing in a way. It made me feel good. It gained my trust. You know, I didn't understood that particular aspect of the one finger, two finger thing, but I did understand it was pointing towards me and it, like, hey, we're buddies, right? Right? No need to shoot me.
Yeah, you don't know what they're thinking, but they are observers. And one of the things that makes me wonder are they are watchers in these areas because there's something more, an element of more out in these national forests going on. And they are just trying to protect us from something. Some people say, well, you know, now we're seeing big show formats coming out and having discussions of huge panelist names like Church and Linda Moulton Howe and Richard Dolan. And these are people of greatness trying to disclose a lot of different types of information. But when you have things like this out there and, you know, going on, it makes you wonder, is this elusive creature just looking out for us, warning us off, saying we're big enough to take care of ourselves? They're not going to touch us, but there could be just something else out here in the woods. I'm not referring to Frogman, Mothman, a different culture of Yeti or a giant. But in some of these national forests, because you brought this up, I'll give a big drop a lot of people don't know about, and I haven't really brought it to the forefront yet. In the last 75 years, we have dug underground everywhere, including in national forest. And in some place in these national forests, when you go out 10 miles back, which a lot of people don't always even fathom that there could be something of different existence, you'll come across parking lots, but only parking lots where cars are in them, white cars, and they don't have license plates, but they have stickers that say the United Nations. So, you know, maybe they're observing the wrongdoings of man, and they are just trying to do the right things for man by saying, look, this is not a good place for you. Maybe it's not really about, hey, come and enjoy the woods with us. Maybe it's more about, you know, someone has to keep a watchful eye. And when we go into the lures, the Hopi Indians, the people who came to help us, protected us during devastational, catastrophic events on this earth, it kind of fits a narrative where the possibility of something like that could exist, and equality between you and I. We are friends, and leave it like that. You live as I live, and we live together. And maybe that was a prime example of a message in certain ways that we should take your information to say that it may fit into these other categories of problematic informations.
It was, and I have what I'll say is a little bit of insight. My knowledge of it. I was at a powwow in Georgia. I don't know, about maybe 12 years ago, 15 years ago, and I was just looking for somebody to talk to, and I knew that that there's a storyteller and there's usually a woman, a medicine woman or whatever, at the powwows, and I was searching for that person, and I was telling them the story, and they said, wait here. And they left, and they came back, and they said, there's somebody that wants to talk to you. And usually at a real powwow, you have Indian police to make sure nobody's selling anything that's not authentic Native American.
Gotcha.
And they said, somebody wants to talk to you. And they led me through the tent areas into the back of this one big giant tent that was cordoned off, and there was a guy in there. And turns out that guy's name happens to be Ernie, also Ernest, and he's the great grandson of, I think it was maybe Sitting Bull. It's been a while, and I told him he wanted to hear the story, and I told him that, and he expressed to me how lucky that I was, and he asked me a few questions, and he said, "You do understand that what happened to you is they are." they are guarding you. They guard you. You walk in two worlds. So all my life I was thinking about, for the past 30 years, I've been thinking about that. And I remembered a story about Chief Joseph when he was fleeing the army there and headed up, taking his people up towards the Canadian border. He stopped along the way to ask for refuge, for sanctuary in a few spots. And one of them that's accounted for is, and I'm probably going to get it wrong, but it's called Sasquatchian. And if you look at Native American maps on where everybody was, there is such a place. There was such a place. And he asked, and he gave an account in his own words. And this was a Harvard educated guy. Chief Joseph had an education, and he was denied that because they didn't want anything to do with us. I believe that they are spiritual, not spiritual beings, but they are very spiritual. Are there some bad ones? Yeah, just like there's bad people. I think there's some bad ones, but I think that they're spiritual. And they told him that they didn't want him to come in there for sanctuary because they didn't want us around. They didn't want to be found. They didn't want anything to do with us. That's pretty much the way it is today. It seems that everybody that's had an encounter, close encounter, has basically, and I patterned everything, the same thing in common. It was our mental state at the time. Either we had gone through a hard time and we were really becoming spiritually awakened and at peace with ourselves. We had been in those areas before and we found comfort in those areas. I believe that is, and I'm going to say who they are. To some aspect, people can go off with the Nephilim thing or whatever they want to do. And that's great. But I believe that they're very spiritual beings. They have a very good sense of their spirit. They haven't changed, and we have. We don't have that. We're very destructive. We hear people that want to just go out and shoot one. Why? Why would you do that? That's a man-like being. You know. I don't know if I'm explaining it the right way. I'm just plugging in here, Mike. Hold on.
Not a problem.
Because I don't want to lose this.
No, we don't want to lose you either. In case there's anybody has any questions, we've had a lot of people come in, out, and have stood by watching us. So there's a lot of interest to your story, and I can't wait for this to get published. I'm going to go as far as I can with it on all the platforms, so it'll be uploaded everywhere.
Great.
Again, I want the best to come from all of this for you as well.
Well, not to cut you off, but I have one more thing while it's on my mind. Bill Rigby, he's a trained tracker. And he told me some things that he came across, and I told him that the Mohawks, you go up to the Mohawk Trail up towards Massachusetts up there, they have what they call lookout points. Okay, where they would send one of their warriors or braves or whatever to sit on this lookout point. And they could see forever. And if they seen a warring party coming or whatever it may be, they could warn all the other ones. I believe that knocking on trees, those are their lookouts. Those are the ones that they see you and they're warning the family unit. They're warning the other ones in their party to be ready in case they got to move out. By us banging on trees, I mean, what the heck? Take up hunting and try to go rabbit hunting, something real easy, or squirrel hunting, and walk around playing music and banging on trees. It's not going to happen. You know, the same with them. I'm sure that I'm sure after all I know, they can probably laugh, and that's a laughable thing. To go out there and even doing the whoop noises, they know that you're not one of them. You know, they know you're there long before you even got in the woods. You know, just like your dog can sight something or hear or smell something long before you, they can smell you. they can hear you. They know you're there.
Right. And so how do we think that some of these parts and elements? Well, what we have done so far to deep dive in this just for a quick moment is pheromones are now coming out, and they want the pheromones to smell like the possibility like them of gorillas and monkeys and chimpanzees, but maybe what they really need to do is release pheromones from deers or something. Maybe they would have more interest in a food supply chain versus I can smell Ralph over on the other mountain. You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe people are looking at the objective to that part wrongly. And again, you could very well be correct as far as the quality of the whistle, the techniques that they develop.
Yeah.
This is their communication. They got it down pat. You're probably right.
Yeah.
The things that we make are probably just drawing attention that there's a couple more morons in the woods tonight.
Jane Goodall.
I know. That's why I used to laugh about Bobo and some of the techniques that those guys. Look, they put a lot of time into the field. They deserve the ability for it.
They do.
And they taught us, don't act like an idiot when you're in the woods, because you're never going to have an encounter on your show.
Right.
But one of the most fascinating things that had shown up is Expedition Bigfoot is they're picking up paranormal entities, shadows like. And the last one that I watched, it kind of had a form of, if you really watch it close, time over and over and over again and again and again, it kind of reminds you of a Squatch in a way, as its walk and its pattern of walk. Like when we look at the Patty film, the Patty G film. So I don't know what they've seen, but I do know and I do believe the facts of what this chief had said to you that night, that we live within 2 dimensions. And I do believe that. Maybe Bigfoot is not the spiritual. But then we got to go back and kind of reflect. Well, maybe they still do have an added step of measure with the infrasound and the different things that maybe distort the pictures when we're trying to take pictures. They doing something to manipulate the atmosphere so there's no clarity. I mean, there's a lot of things we are not going to understand except for the fact of what you saw. You saw something that maybe in history, the history books may someday write 5 people that had an encounter quite like yours. And I can't come across any other like it except for 4 others. And they don't all add up the same ways as yours. Yours doesn't all add up the same ways as their experiences were. But when you connect the dots, it seems that these beings are a life entity just as we are, a human versus possibly a human. And if we do go biblical and you want to call them the Nephilim, or the possibility of, or the Raphalim, which was the ones after the flood.
Yeah.
And if this was a hybrid creation of humanity and more, and you're seeing that, and you just explained it, African American, Neanderthal, excuse me on that, and then Indian. So a complex system of what made it, who knows, but it's there, and just like we are.
Right, exactly.
It's impressive. It's impressive when we really look at some of the fundamentals. We may not be looking at the research always in a good way of light, but things like what you've talked about today and this experience are just beyond mind-blowing, because on a different level of mind-blowing, fact versus issues of theories. And the theories, when you get facts like this, you got to put the theories off to the side and recalculate all the information. You really need to. I do believe that there's an intelligence. I'll share a story with you real quick.
Good.
That you were talking about the great Olympian there and how agile it was, and nothing stood in its way. But I also have another question for you from my side.
Yep.
Before I go down that path, did you, as this entity is at the tree and I'm going to get up because I want to do this the best way I can so you understand it. It's moving away from you at some point. You said it started to go in distance away from you to meet up with the other.
Yep.
Were you able, as far as to describe the width? I know you said it was immense beyond measurable means, but were you able to walk through anything that was comfortable to you where it had to turn its shoulders, or do they walk where boom off whatever they want because they just can?
See if I understand that. It was pretty open. He didn't have to run through any brush or anything like that.
Okay, so there was no way to say width, like the size of a tailgate, because I've got at least 15 good ones on that.
Yeah, width wise, if you were to take a look at Shaq, the basketball player, he ain't big enough. He ain't big enough. His shoulders are, I don't know how wide his shoulders are.
Right.
This thing was like the epitome of a major athlete, only bigger than Shaq. So body proportionate wise, you can only picture that his shoulders, I mean, I could guesstimate 3 feet wide. I know that, you know, after all my fights and everything, I can pretty much figure out what a guy weighs. And I'd say that this thing had to go close to 500 pounds, you know, 450 to 500 in excellent shape. Big biceps. The arms didn't appear to be actually that. They were body proportionate. They weren't down below his knees. They were maybe could have been Marvin Hagler type length, you know, which he had abnormally long arms, but they didn't hang below his knees.
Right.
You know, the forearms were almost devoid of the hair, but there was dark. So at a distance, you really can't say that they're all hairy because they're going to look all hairy or furry or whatever from a distance because the skin was matching the hair color. You know, it pretty much blended right in there. About 450 to 500 pounds. I'd say 3-4 feet wide on the shoulders, 7'8", in excellent shape. The chest, very, very muscular, very muscular. I wasn't going to win in a knockdown drag out, nor was my handgun going to win unless I shot him right up underneath the jaw or something. You know, I mean, it was going to be a no-win situation if that had transpired. We would both be gone, and its hands, everything about it was just muscular. You know, if it wanted to run through and grab a tree, let's say, even a sapling, even 4 inches round, it probably could have grabbed the sapling and just freaking broke it right off with one hand.
Or ripped it completely out of the ground.
It could. I mean, that would have been that's super strong. I couldn't even imagine, but it looked like it could easily grab a sapling 4 inches round and snap it right off.
Yeah, and I know what you mean by that because I had a couple scenarios where I was clearing a little bit of ground, and I didn't want to pull out Old Blue. Old Blue is one of my tractors. It's a bucket loader with a backhoe attachment on it. That's the beast. So I pulled the quad up, 650 V twin, super modified. It's no, it really is, and it's the 2-seater. It's the TRV, two riding vehicle, legal that you can put a plate on. So I strap all this stuff down to the sapling, and I had this bike standing up in the air. So I get where you're at, and then we could say, look at Andre the Giant, the 8th wonder, 9th wonder of the world, as the WWF used to, idolize him in his title and with his introductions. But I know a lot of these wrestlers. I hung out with a guy named Dave Youngkins, and he's had all kind of belts. He actually worked for me. Great guy. He's into politics now. He's for America. Rah, rah. He's doing a good job. But he still wrestles. He still does a lot of good things. These are big human beings.
Yeah.
And 450 might not even be touching base because I'm telling you, I know these guys weighed that. And so when you take that, and Jack wears a size 22. That can be confirmed. And and Shaq would look like a newbie in the gym against this guy.
Yeah. Shaq would have been at a huge disadvantage against one of these things.
Wow.
It could have taken him and thrown Shaq out of a ring if it was in the ring with him easily, just gone berserker on him. It could have very well been, because figuring out how fit it was, because muscle is going to weigh a heck of a lot more.
Yeah, muscle mass is always more. You know,
I've never seen anything that big, a man that big, anybody in that kind of shape. I don't care if it was any of the wrestlers. I have never seen a single wrestler that was cut up that size. This thing was cut up. If this thing, I've been fishing in that area, and at night, and I used to play a prank on my brother and throw a fairly good sized rock out into the water and go, that was a bass. That was a bass, because we were using jitterbugs, and we'd make them pop. And he'd go, hey, did you get a fish, But that's the area we were in. And occasionally, I would think that he would throw a bigger rock. And a couple of times we heard a couple of them that hit that water that were really good size. And there are accounts written down, if people check that on the web, that people put out there. There is, in that area, the thing that gets me also is there was an old town, and the town exists off of that. This is in the reservoir area. People aren't allowed in. If you go in there, I promise you, a helicopter will come in and take you out of there. I personally know people that helicopters have gone in there, Army, and taken them out of there. I had a store in the town that was just off the reservoir, and I heard this story that in the reservoir area, there's a old town back in the times of the Underground Railroad that was founded by some of the slaves, and there's a cemetery there. And on a lot of the gravestones there, it says killed by the beast.
Great. I'm aware of that.
Yeah. Now, why would I ever go hunting in there? I guess.
Yeah, and it's right on the tombstones.
Right.
What was the beast? I mean, could another species of something now that maybe,
who knows?
Maybe they came to their own circumference of we're not here. That they've been extinguished somehow. Maybe Bigfoot had a party to that of clearing the thing. That's why I'm saying maybe they're more of a watcher, protector for humanity, because there's something more and bigger going on. It has nothing to do with Bigfoot, but it does have something to do, in theory, of maybe how this creature is being preyed upon, looked upon as the villain here. And maybe they're just not that.
Yeah, there's another theory that I think too, and I'll get into that. We were right where this happened. There's on one of the fire roads. We don't know to this day who does this, but there's an old boulder there, and we call it Indian Rock. And it's actually somebody goes in there every so many years and repaints that rock to look like an Indian. Well, we were in there, my brother Franny and I, whom we're getting ready to have a reunion this summer. I haven't seen him I've only seen him once in about 50 years, I think. And we were partying in there. We were in the car, and the exhaust would fall off. You're young and, whatever. So he got out of the car to rehook the exhaust back up again. He's underneath the car, and it's dark out. And I hear something jump out in the woods, like a deer, like we scared it and it jumped up, And I'm listening to it. And now it's not 4 legs. It's 2 legs, and it's big, and it's heavy, and it's headed right towards the car. So I screamed at him to get out of there. We jumped in the car, and we took off, and it probably was maybe 20 yards from the car, from the sounds of it, when we got the hell out of there. That's just, why would anybody ever want to go hunting in that area? We just passed that off, Mike,
Right.
Whatever. We were scared, but we couldn't confirm anything. I never really paid that much attention to signs that I actually was seeing when I was hunting by myself in that area years prior to that. But everything I do, and this is what I tell people, if you're going to go out there and you're going to be rummaging around the woods, take a topo and mark everything down on the topo. There's patterns to everything, and there's a reason why there's a pattern to it. It's for you to figure out, you know. I think that a lot of these sightings just might be around maybe Indian burial sites or something. I could be completely wrong, but that area.
And maybe they have a different perception of dimension. Maybe they're not dimensional in any way, right. But maybe they have a different something that they because we do in ways. If there was no truth behind that, I think we've all heard, like noises or perceive the fact that, like, out of your peripheral vision, as you were explaining early in the show, did I just see a shadow? I mean, are these indications of that other dimension that lives amongst us, with us, and possibly other things can partake into this dimension that we just don't understand? But again, when we look at the facts of everything that you've delivered, this is too much like a warm-blooded creature.
Yes.
It's like us, and the possibilities of that don't exist, but we do know in certain animals they do possess a technology of an imbalancement that they refer to as the infrasound, that creates you to be dizzy and feel sick and lose your cognitive and everything else.
It's feasible because, let's face it, there's other animals in the animal kingdom. A snake, it's a heat seeker. Okay, yeah. It's a heat seeker. It can detect its prey with flicking its tongue in the air. There's animals there's bats that can use that clicking. There's known human beings that are blind that'll actually use a clicking sound to access
the surroundings.
Yeah. So who knows what level they are actually on,
Again, that goes into spirituality, energy, duality, a whole different vibration of science and understanding, and energies like 432, 633, 528. But these are the facets of man. This is the God particle versus the man particle versus. So you have these different faculties of science that are, and many of them are proven.
Right.
Many of them truly are proven. So that's why they're talked about with the enormity that they are, which some people call now this awakening. And it's funny that you brought up in this segment the mention of bats and snakes. Beware of the venom is all I'm going to say.
Yeah, beware of the venom. If you're gonna drink venom, preferably it's the whiskey.
There you go. Somebody needs to create a good bottle of venom. But again, theoretically, I was speaking about something else, and more people will come to know that information shortly, I would think. But it has nothing to do with the Bigfoot. But this is about Bigfoot. If you're just stepping in with us, we got Ernie Davieau on with me. He's had a very amazing encounter, and I urge you to go back to the beginning and listen to the entirety of this interview. And I don't even feel like it was an interview. I just feel like it was two people hanging out, chilling, and get your story out. And I do have something that Dave Parker brought into light a little while back in the segment, and I'm trying to just cover his base for him. His comment, this comes from the man who has land, who lives amongst them, and has a lot of different types of encounters. I'll leave that part of where that is private because, again, a lot of people, they hear about something, they go, no trespassing, how that kind of thing is. He says they do laugh. So evidently David has heard on his lands, and I think I discussed with David when I did some things with him recently, where we talked about the gibberish, the language, but he's focusing on the fact that, I guess, in a way, that something has come up on his end. I don't remember him mentioning that before. He may have, but to say that they laugh, sure, why not? Probably they have a communication where they may even look at us from a distance. I mean, who knows what their eyesight's like? It could be, 100 times better than ours.
Right.
And they just hang out and laugh about us. Oh, there's 2 more of them out there.
I'm sure.
Go clear them out of the woods. You don't need to be this far back. And again, it makes a lot of sense. They don't. Too many people have come out with stories that say they were just basically scared, very scared, with their encounter. They didn't always have a visual to exactly say what they were encountering, but they had an escort back to their car, and they always do, and they always drive away. But that doesn't happen for all, and it's when you especially point out the certain places and features and land management programs. And now, as we're learning, these brown and yellow signs are United Nations signs. Mysterious parking lots, mysterious cars. I mean, it correlates. There's some things there that we need to focus on. It may not have to do exactly with Bigfoot, but in a way, my theory is they may be just trying to look out for something that they know that the only way they want to be involved in it is to just try to possibly keep us safe by keeping us out.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, one of the I call them legends, and for the Native Americans is actually history. But at a powwow, when you go to a powwow and they have the sacred fire there, and they have the dances around it, they have the combat veterans go in there and everything else, the grand march. The entrance is always facing in a particular direction, no matter where you go. It's always the same direction.
We build the same way, always into the direction of the east. It's really fascinating. But if you go up and look at the obelisk in Washington, at the very top is an aluminum cap that has writing on it, and it faces the east. Even certain aspects of the White House, when you put and correlate around all these builder mounds as well, which correlates with giants. Everything has an arrow. It all goes back, and I think what they're signifying is the origin of man, which then goes back to where you look into the I think it's called the Corrigan Bible, and the creation of man, and it all the arrows all point. I'm just saying, they all point. They may not all tie in with Bigfoot, but maybe Bigfoot knows a lot more than we ever give credit to.
Yeah, I mean, even in the Native American legend or history, they say that the reason why it's facing in that direction is because someday Big Brother will come from that direction to dance around the sacred fire again with us. And they call it Big Brother. And that's, I mean, all these things that I've read and heard over the last 36 years, they all add up to this is no longer what are they? This is who are they? And they are not going to just make themselves known to just anybody. I believe, like you say, the 432 megahertz, everything vibrates. That's a sacred vibration. Even a dog knows if you're okay or you're not. That's why they tell you don't stare at a fractured dog in the eyes. It's going to think you want to eat it, and it's going to attack. I mean, same with them. I think they have an innate feeling that you are good or you are bad, and they don't want to be around you if you don't have that vibration. They're going to try to just get you out of there. I mean, to come over and check you out, then there's something there that they're inquisitive about too. Like as in Carrie Arnold's encounter. I mean, it basically walked up to him too. It knew he was there. but then when they got there, things changed a little bit, like, whatever. But I believe that they do know that they can feel that that's their home, and they don't really want any part of people that are nefarious, we'll say, to be disturbing their surroundings, or destroying their area that they feed in. Like I would be really mad if my main source of food was, for instance, and I'll go back on it, the American chestnut. That pretty much no longer exists. It was wiped out in 1923. I wouldn't be happy, if everybody wiped out my steaks and all I had was plant-based food.
I love where you're going.
Yeah,
I love it. You must know who I am. No, but that's for my American Crisis Fridays. But no, I get exactly what you're saying. And if you think about things, I mean, truthfully, when you think about things, some of the things that have taken place throughout our own government and methane and more, because of warp speed actions that some people do, we suffer more by inappropriate actions and cover up through our own that are destroying our ozone. It's not really the cows. Go out and look at how you did not take care of the vegetation before you decided to put a man-made lake in. But no, they just decided halfway is good enough. And what comes from that? Methane gases that go up into the atmosphere. And that's why we have lakes that take people out. People aren't aware of these pockets, and they go out there and they get above them, and these big bubbles come up, and they could be looking over as one of them comes up, and unexplained deaths. Well, one of the unexplained death syndromes that do occur in places like this is where man has had his hands and never took care of it properly. So things like this just surround life. We got to be aware. We got to be smart. We have to think logically. One of the other things I like to bring up too is while everybody's out there squatching, remember Mary Fabian and her clothing line? She has everything from the cutest little infant stuff for the babies, Sasquatchers, all the way up to the Squatch sizers. So if you're a big Squatch sizing man, she's got your plan. She's got your covers for you, whether it's a hoodie, a t-shirt, and more. Remember to support Pennsylvania Bigfoot. Remember to support the people of True Voice down at A Life with Bigfoot, and many others out there too. Guys, I'm sorry if I'm not remembering everybody, but if it's Bigfoot, if it's crypto, I'm sorry, not crypto, cryptozoology and the facets of those, please support your groups and always be kind. Take every form of information as information, and just be nice to everybody. So let me just go through here and just let you know if there's any other questions and so forth. The design, Washington for satanic, purposes. Okay, with everything was built by evil, but you have to understand. I do want to make a comment to that. I want to talk about something tomorrow night as far as that. You have to remember though. It was actually the Masons who pretty much were the foot workers of America. They were the new format of what we understand from the ancient builders to the new American builders, where technology and aesthetics were in place within all these places, and never take off the cornerstone, this marker that they always do in a ritual of light, because there's good and bad on both sides, even within the same scenarios of secret societies. Why did they always place oil? Why did they always place corn? Why did they always place water? And why did they always pour wine? It's just things that we need to think about. So I don't think that the fact that we have an imbalance of always bad, it's a source of life, an expression of the highest way that they knew how to do it. The problem is there's good and bad on both sides. And a lot of people use that for their own gains. But I'll talk about more of that tomorrow. Darlene's a rock star. She follows me on all the platforms and stuff, and she's just a rock star. She really is. I have one last question though for you that came in differently, came privately through Messenger. Did you see any really good footprints while you were there?
No, it basically, when it lumbered off, it went through some low foliage. Uh, it didn't really sink into the ground. I didn't get anything that would you could take a picture of, if I had a camera on me that morning, where I could actually measure it off because of the grass being pushed down, the weeds and stuff. So no, I mean, I've seen, I've put together some of the signs that I've seen in the past years, and now I've affiliated with them being in that area, but not in that area. The footprints, the only footprints that I've ever seen that I remember in my life was hunting with my great uncle and my father and my brother. And that was before I knew anything about Bigfoot or anything. And that to me looked identical to a man. I attribute it to the fact is there's a crazy man running around the woods up here in the snow naked. And so I could understand why we needed to get out of that area. But yeah. No.
Did you ever go back and try to relive that moment?
Years ago, my wife and I went to visit my sister and my brother-in-law in Westfield, in that city. And I didn't really tell them at the time, but I told them I'd take them a walk up around there. But I did tell my wife this is basically where I had my encounter. I never went back up there where I had the encounter. I have never been back in the woods hunting again. If I go in the woods, I don't go in far. And when I do, I carry a gun on me. Better to be safe than sorry. I carry a go bag on me with the intentions, if I did have a trip and fall, that I want to be able to survive the night. I get a spare tire in my car for the same reason, in case something happens. Right. But I've never went hunting again. I don't need to kill something. I work, so I can buy my meat, I feed the deer now and stuff. They actually come up in my yard for their own safety reasons sometimes because of the coyotes. But
I get that. I have that same type of uniqueness. They surround me, whether I'm outside doing chainsaw work or running power tools. They'll come up and lay right where I'm working, and it's like, are you serious?
They can sense it.
It's always been going on in my life, and I've experienced things because of it, and some of them and many of them have been totally unexplainable. But that's why we need time to sit back and reflect. So I have a final question for you. Would you consider one day possibly coming back with me, Bill, Dave, and a couple other guys where we could just talk shop about putting more of these facts together? Because my mind works one way. Other people's minds work other ways.
Yep.
And I think, if we all got together to try to, just have a good time and talk shop about this whole Bigfoot phenomena and more, because, I think there's a lot more information here that we could probably extract from you with some other minds thinking other things that I may not have been able to come across. But again, blown away with the story, and I totally believe you. I really, really do. And I want you to know that I give you all my support. And I wouldn't invite you back if I didn't, because believe me, I've sat with some people and did some pre-show stuff, and it's like, they just every time you talk to them, leading up to something or even through the story, there was a little bit of tweaking and everything got added, or they forgot what they said, and it was like, here you stayed focused on everything according to the story and your experience. And I want to thank you for coming on, letting us be able to help you get it shared out. But I know if I get in touch with Bill and Dave and 4 or 5 other people. I'll see who wants to pop off first. I know your
Mhm.
best bets are early, and we can always do an
Yeah,
early show. That's not
yeah,
an issue. But I would love to have you come back on a
that'd be great.
format with all of us.
I'd like to give a shout out to a guy that I know too that needs the help of this community, and that's a Larry Batson. Is he's an animal guy,
Mm-hmm.
and he's got a long history just like you, and he takes in. He used to go around to all the schools and show his animals, baboons, tigers, alligators. He feeds them, and he could use this community's help. He makes he's got because he's got to feed him. He makes him and his wife make these mugs, and I wish that people would tune into his program, Larry Batson, the Animal Guy, and become acquainted with that, and just try to help him out with something like that. You know,
Okay.
he's the one that actually uh, kind of won me over originally because, like I said, I've been doing this for 36 years, watching, lurking in the background because I just didn't like. People with attitudes. I didn't need to be snickered at. I've had it happen. I've blown a relationship with a well-known individual that I won't mention his name, and I will get to meet him someday again. And I will say, yeah, I'm the guy that called you a name on the telephone because I was just so excited when this first happened, and it was him that I had tried to get in touch with and finally got in touch with, and he's gonna
Yeah.
laugh. He's gonna laugh hysterically
Well,
because
maybe I can help you get that point across to him. I do know that
that'd be great.
I do know that I have a couple names out there that are looking. So, and I know who you're
Good.
talking about. I know exactly who you're talking about. And mistakes happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think, if it gets explained the right way, all's
Yeah.
forgiven in love and war
Yeah.
amongst people who are patriots. I'll say it like that the best way I can.
I
And I
believe it's like
truly think he is. So,
yeah, I believe it's like what you're saying. You've really helped me out here, and it's the information needs to get out there, and that's why I'm coming forward with this because I recommend to people that if you're going to go out and you're going to be doing this stuff out there, just sit there and wait. Just find peace and happiness within yourself first to be out there with nature in the woods. And if you hear the whooping noise or the whistling noises or the knocks on the trees, understand that that's their way of showing themselves to you. Whatever's going on, you know that they're there, but they don't really want to have contact with you. And perhaps that you might get lucky and they will make contact with you, like as they did with Bill Rigby. Okay.
mhm.
And that could happen. For let's face it, Jane Goodall just didn't go running up the side of the mountain after a bunch of silverbacks banging on trees.
Well, she's even been
Yeah.
interviewed by a couple people
Yes.
where she had interest of knowing about a bipedal type ape-like creature
Yeah.
and sent word out
Hmm.
where she was doing her uh, I guess through her grants where they were placing her in I can't remember every specific area she visited, but on one occasion she sent out word and said if anybody could pass this on and just ask for me, has anybody witnessed creatures like this? And it took a few months, according to how this question's been asked of her more than once, by the way. Um, it did come back that people had sightings of this man-like creature, ape-like man creature, whatever and however you want to navigate calling it or naming it. So
Right.
many names, so many names.
You got to imagine too that when she started doing this, is she had to find a way to communicate with those gorillas.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and the same here is if you're gonna come across one, and that is the essence of what we're really trying to do here is who are they, and if you how are you going to communicate with them? So the more people that are out there that hear this, I'd like to hear, did you see anything? Did you see them use their hands? What did they do? So we can compile a list of the different hand signals so that if we come across them, we can communicate with them because they definitely do that. They definitely communicate verbally with others in their group or whatever, and they also communicate with sign language to ones that may not speak the same dialect as them. Most definitely. And they leave sign for the other groups that they're passing through an area, or that the other ones are in that area or whatever, to compile them, not to just look at it and just say, oh, okay, I got a broken tree branch over here. What does it mean? Why is it there? Where is it on a topographical map? What direction is it pointing in? All those things have to be documented. We know they exist. We know that they're not a monkey. We know they're intelligent. They are pretty much on our level. They are, as I've heard, like Dana Neldro come out and say, do you think that it's a relic? You know, they're definitely, what I first described them as being was, look at the missing link. Look at that tree or that train of humans at the museum. And they know that there's one missing in there, probably more.
It's funny that you brought that up. You're talking about the Darwin?
Yes.
Okay. Well, you know, he was actually paid to create that.
Wow.
That wasn't something that his information showed different, and he accepted money to change the paperwork.
Sure.
And I guarantee you I'm not wrong on that. And more will come out as history shows. Maybe not in our lifetimes, because we're starting to be the elders of the communities as we get close to 60, and I'm actually over it. But yeah, that whole theory concept, I guarantee you, do some real history research work. It will blow your mind to know what family made the payment for him to change his analogy of the theory of man.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, you probably already know. It's one of the ones way up there.
Okay.
But it's factual. It's factual. This was not his true theory. He was paid to change it.
Yeah. If you know that it's missing, then you know that it exists.
Exactly. That's where we are. That's this time, and that's why we need to stick together stronger. And also, I want to say this: let's not all run into the woods 100,000 strong or 100 million strong, but let's keep strong. Let's get out there, be safe. Remember your go bag. Bill, I always say it to you: make sure you got enough water and all your good stuff, essentials. Take Band-Aids. A little handy dandy knife. Have things close by you. Never take anything for granted. You just can't do that. And always let somebody know where you're going to be, of course, and be smart and take for granted some of the things from this experience that may help you in your researches. So, all right, we're going to plan something then for in the future where we can all get on together and do a platform segment of everybody's experiences and whatnot. And we'll have some fun with that. I want to thank you again for coming on. I really, really, really appreciated you doing this with me and making us your choice to do it. I don't feel anything special about it, but I guess hard work does prevail and shows through the best way it can. I'm going to do, like, as I said, I'll get this shared out more after the segment this afternoon into some of the platforms that don't get reached while we are live. Because I got to do a lot of the things after the fact, which is fine by me. So please feel free to do it and share it to your groups as well or your friends. And let's create the community to get stronger. Support your local Bigfoot groups. Go to all the even if it's UFO, it doesn't matter. Stay enlightened. Stay educated. Don't take anything off the table. It's all information. It may all mean something. Maybe not in this lifetime, but it might help the future of where we're going as we try to research this more. I wish Leonard Nimoy, what was it? Leonard Nimoy? Was that his name?
Leonard Nimoy, yeah. Well,
He was like my hero. He was the rock star that did a lot for me. It wasn't just the voice or the narration, but the fact that he actually had a love for what he was doing.
Yeah.
This whole unknown. And, we got to take our hats off to guys like that. Maybe one day we can all, do some type of thank you to him for, putting these steps forward in the community that actually opened the landscape. Like, they said the Beatles opened the door to rock and roll, or Elvis opened the door to rock and roll. Well, he opened the door to Bigfoot and a bunch of other things that were unknown. And surprisingly, they allowed him to stay on TV for a long time doing it, where a lot of things have been shut down. So, anyway, again, I do have to get to work this afternoon. I have a late call. It's only picking up supplies. And again, I apologize for the late start today between what you were going through and flashes of power here and storms coming through. As we've been seeing them almost daily. I really got to get offline now. And I want to thank everybody, though. And I know that he's going to do the same. And I'm going to say for this as my closing. Love you guys to death. Keep all the posts coming. America Disclosing Uncensored. Look into it. It's very informative. It's on many different levels of theories, ancient history, books, names, people, places, things. It's great fun. It really is. It's great fun. And you're right when they start even attacking history. And they are. I got 2 slaps on the wrist yesterday. One because an astronaut wouldn't put his hand on the Bible to swear that he walked on the moon. So, questions. But again, everybody, thanks so much, brother. I appreciate you, Ernie. We'll talk soon more. You have anything you want to shout out to anybody before we go off?
No, just I just thank you, everybody, for listening to this, and I hope you take it to heart on a lot of it, and don't just wash it off. Don't just try to garner what you think. These are facts.
I appreciate that, how and your strength, how you stand behind it. That's what's going to give us truth out there. Again, everybody, thanks so much. I'm going to be killing it now. Everybody, take care. Have a great day. Please subscribe. Hit our YouTube channel, Gab, Getter, and Rumble. We don't post everything, but you'll find what you need to. Remember, don't judge me. I won't judge you. America Disclosure. This was the Dark Radio Network Project. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.